families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Families Divided TV. Whenever parents decide they no longer want to be together, then it's a problem many times that affects, most importantly, the children. The children are the victims. The children are not being considered as the most important part of this if one of the parents has decided, I hate the other parent and I'm going to make it as miserable as I can for them. Therefore, in doing so, they're not thinking about the welfare of the child as far as their mental and physical being and their health. Sometimes this affects them for the rest of their life when it gets severe and turns into alienation. Today, Dr. William Fabricius will be speaking with Dr. Colleen Murray, and he'll be talking with you in great length about equal shared parenting and the importance of that for the children, because after all, the children are the most important thing in the world, not a parent, not a grandparent, the child. So please pay close attention to this, and some of you may even wish to take notes because he's giving us a lot of great information. So we'll be sharing that with you right after these messages.
Hello, and welcome to another segment of Families Divided. Today, we'll be talking to Dr. William Fabricius. He's an associate professor in the psychology department at Arizona State University. Dr. Fabricius's passion is to study the development of children's theory of mind, or how children process and remember and use information in social contexts that help them better understand others and be more successful with their interactions between others. He also has done significant research in the area of shared parenting, looking at the impact on a child's mental health and well-being and the parent-child relationships. And his research was important in helping to get Arizona to be the first state to adopt the presumption of shared parenting. Today, we're going to be talking with him about his research in the areas of shared parenting. Welcome, Dr. Fabricius. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you for asking me to be here.
So let's jump right in. So what effects does witnessing a high conflict parental situation during a divorce or custody case actually have on a child?
Well, witnessing parent conflict causes what we call emotional insecurity in the child, which is worry and fright and fear. It's a stress reaction that's the same kind of stress reaction we all get when we're threatened by something. You know, as adults, we're threatened by, adult types of things. Being audited by the IRS, for example. I mean, immediately your heart starts pounding, your pupils dilate, stress hormones circulate through your body when you feel threatened. And it's exactly the same thing that happens to young children in a couple of different situations. One of them is witnessing parent conflict. It causes a kind of anxiety that has to do with fear of abandonment, fear that my parents might hurt each other or, abandon me. So it's a particular type of stress that is very harmful for the child, because the child will worry about it even when the parents aren't arguing. The child will pick up little sort of cues, and it will trigger this insecurity, this emotional insecurity about the parent conflict. And physiologically, what that does is expose the child's system, body, to chronic release of stress hormones, which interfere with growth and development, interfere with emotional processing, interfere with the immune system. And that type of chronic exposure to stress can have long-term physical health problems on into middle age and beyond. So we really have started to understand how exposure to parent conflict can harm the child in the long run, in terms of physical and mental health.
Got it. So it's not just when we're looking at these cases, it's not just about what happens in the immediate. It's about taking into consideration what's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Exactly. And research shows that.
Right. The ACEs studies are a really good example of that, right? And taking all that into consideration.
Yes.
So
the public health literature going back to the 50s and the 60s has revealed that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we start out with that base and we see a child having a lot of this anxiety, a lot of times what I'll hear in these high conflict divorce cases is, well, the child's good at, a 30-70 split or a 20-80 split, and any more time could stress the child out. So how do you address the idea that increased parenting time could cause undue emotional stress on the child?
Well, there's a second source of stress that has to do with divorced families, and that is the amount of time the child spends living with each parent after the separation. When the child doesn't see one parent for long periods of time, it threatens the child's emotional security with that parent. Mm-hmm. So it's extremely important to keep in mind that there are two sources of emotional insecurity, particularly in divorcing families. One, the child's emotional insecurity about ongoing parent conflict, but the second is the emotional insecurity that the child can experience with each relationship, with mom and with dad. And the way we have talked about and understand this second type of emotional security between the child and each parent, it comes down to the child having a sense that they matter to each parent. And when the child doesn't see one parent for a long period of time, it causes a similar type of emotional insecurity about my relationship with that parent. If I don't see that parent, young children are very susceptible to thinking it's because the parent doesn't want to see me. They have a very limited understanding of the family court system. So we have to be careful to protect the child's emotional security in terms of parent conflict, but also in terms of how much the child feels they matter to each parent. And what we've been able to find over and over again is that the amount of parenting time the child spends with each parent after divorce is highly related to how secure the child feels with that parent, how much that child is reassured that they matter to that parent. So it all comes down to this. Even in a high conflict family, equal parenting time tends to increase the child's emotional security with each parent. Mm-hmm. So that lets you understand that it's a real mistake to say that since this couple after the divorce is still not able to stop fighting, we can't protect the child from the emotional insecurity about the conflict by reducing the child's time with one of the parents. That just adds two sources of emotional insecurity for that child. And both sources of emotional insecurity combine to predict the child's long-term health. So the best way that courts can deal with ongoing parent conflict is to address the conflict and make it clear to parents that they need to stop this through parent education or through ordering counseling or through parent coordinators. But you don't protect the child from parent conflict by reducing the child's time with one of the parents. So even in high conflict families after divorce, we see benefits of equal parenting time in terms of the child's relationship with each parent.
Yeah, so it seems really, on some level, it might seem to an outsider who's not familiar with the research, really counterintuitive, right? Because we have this child who is seemingly getting high stressed about the going back and forth and the conflict. And so they would probably say something like, gosh, we shouldn't force the child to, in that situation. We should just really wait until the child's ready. So when you hear that, what comes to mind for you? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, children are always ready to spend time with their parents unless there's some particular problem with a parent. But in most cases, it's entirely natural for the child to want to continue to see both parents. And it's children of divorce, when they're adults, when they're looking back on their divorce, it's almost universal that they wish they had equal parenting time, and they think that equal parenting time is best. So I think sometimes we can confuse if a child is only seeing one parent 25 or 30% of the time, then the child might be, might have some doubts about when I'm going to see that parent again, and does that parent really care for me? Do I matter to that parent? There might be a period of sort of adjustment in going to see that parent. And sometimes I think children's stress could be stress about not seeing that parent rather than stress about, quote, going back and forth. I mean, children love to see both parents. What's important to them is the person, it's the parent and time with that parent, rather than, from an adult point of view, they have to, go to another place. So it's if there's some particular reason why a parent is dangerous for a child, that's what courts should be focusing on. But children benefit from equal parenting time, even in high conflict families, and it's what children want.
So I guess what I heard you say is, if there is no substantiated current or history of abuse, then really that should be put on the back burner. And the next things the court should really look at is how to best make the parenting time good for the child.
Well, the only thing the court can do is in terms of ordering time, not quality of time. So that's the only thing the court can do. And we've just consistently found in many different ways that the amount of time the child spends, the amount of parenting time, up to and including equal parenting time, reassures the child of divorce about how much they matter and continue to matter to each parent. And that's a tremendous source of emotional security and a real foundation for future health, a strong parent-child relationship in both cases.
So why, in your opinion, is it that us getting this as a society, us getting this right, this parenting issue just settled? Why is that so important, do you think, from your research and your perspective,
Well, it is a bit of a mystery. Every time we have done public opinion research and other people have done it, the culture is in favor of equal parenting time. When you think about our, cultural development historically, there's been a worldwide move towards, slowly, but a move towards gender equality. And there's been a consequent, move by fathers around the world to want to be more involved in their children's lives, unlike in previous generations. So the culture is there. The family law system in many places isn't. Often researchers aren't. I really don't know, but I do know that in Arizona, we spent a number of years working with the family court system and presenting the research on parenting time. And judges in particular understood the research and really came around pretty quickly towards the benefits of equal parenting time. And when we brought all the stakeholders together in Arizona, we looked at the entire system, including the statutory language around domestic violence and around parenting time. And we were able to craft a law that went into effect in 2013 and has been working beautifully since then. There have been no attempts to modify or change the law. And the law essentially says that the court should maximize the child's parenting time with both parents, unless there's some real reason not to. And in effect, the law is working as a presumption, as a rebuttable presumption for equal parenting time. And the family law community in Arizona is proud of it. They've found ways to individualize and work with families to help them understand and figure out how to do it. And we've been getting calls from places as different as Japan and Scandinavia to find out how it's working, how we did it. Since 2013, there have been 4 other states that have instituted equal parenting time legislation. And every year bills come up in most of the other states. So it's clearly in children's best interests, and it's very workable once people start doing it.
Sure. What do you think the pushback is? Because you said that they come up, these laws are coming up for vote. What do you find the biggest pushback is to not accepting? If society is ready for it, what seems to be the biggest pushback?
I think it's just old stereotypes about fathers and mothers, that are outdated. And I think it's difficult for adults, especially if they've been in a system, to see things from the child's point of view. When you see it from the child's point of view, you know what's important for that child. And we're able to measure this and do, top quality research by measuring things from the child's point of view. And when you do that, it just makes sense. But I think it's just changing. I hate to say it because I'm old, but it's changing older people's minds.
I do see in my own practice, I do see a lot of fathers much more involved than, say, the fathers of 40, 50 years ago, where they may have spent quality time, but they didn't spend quantity time. The generation of fathers now seem to very desperate to do both, spend quality and quantity time with their child and be very much involved with them. And what do you think it'll take to get there, though? What do you think it'll take to get people to see that these old stereotypes are just outdated and not doing any justice to the children of our future?
Well, I think it takes simply a state legislature to pass, a reform to the child custody statute saying that we're going to presume equal parenting time. And once you sort of once the law states something like that, it just opens people up to do what they know is right. So it's just a communication, not only to fathers in the sense of, this, you now have the right to see your child have time, but also kind of in the sense of this is your responsibility, right? And if the culture weren't there, then it wouldn't work. But the culture is there. And it's simply a matter of letting everybody know that everybody else feels this way. People don't know that everyone feels this way. When the family law, statutes presume or endorse equal parenting time, now people realize that this is the cultural norm. This is what people are doing. And once you start figuring out how to do that with your particular work and school schedules and all of that, it happens. And the children and the parents are the ones that benefit.
From your research, have you found any particular rhythm in the exchange of parenting time that generally works best more so than others? Have you done research in that area where it shows like this much time versus this much time is better for the child?
Yeah, we measure the amount of time, not how parents achieve it. So we have developed pretty reliable ways to measure sort of the percentage of time that the child spends across the year with each parent. And we consistently find there's a straight line relationship between increases in parenting time with dad from 0 to 50% and step-by-step increases in the long-term emotional security of the father-child relationship. And very importantly, no decrease in the quality of the mother-child relationship. So at 50-50 parenting time, the child has the strongest relationships with both parents, the strongest long-term relationships with both parents. At a level of the quality of relationships that we find in intact families between the child and each parent. So we don't try to measure one weekly or bi-weekly schedule versus another. We just look at the overall amount of parenting time.
Well, that is just fascinating work that you're doing. Are you currently working on anything in this area that's new? I know you finished up some research not that long ago, but is there anything new that you're working on?
Well, the stuff we've done previously has found the same thing when you look at infants whose parents divorce when they're 0, 1, or 2 years of age. We find exactly the same thing. We've done several studies on relocation, finding that when one parent moves away, either the mother with the child or the father by himself has long-term negative associations with that child's development because it reduces the parenting time. So we find it with infants, we find it in terms of relocation. We find that when the court orders equal time over the objections of one parent, we still see the benefits to the child. And the most recent thing we're doing now is using the state-of-the-art statistical methodology to really be able to see that it is the parenting time itself that seems to cause the changes in the child's emotional security with the parent. So it's hard to explain, but we have 10 years of longitudinal data, and we can see that over time, if the parenting time changes due to lots of things, it can change due to relocation or health or lots of other reasons, remarriage. If parenting time with the parent goes down, a year later, you can see the quality of that relationship go down. And if the parenting time increases, you see increases in the quality of the parent-child relationship. And it's so important, this current finding, current study, because it shows that it's not the type of parent, it's the amount of time. The argument has always been in the divorce literature, and it's a legitimate argument, a legitimate question, that, well, maybe children who have equal time are doing better because those are the good parents who decide to have equal time. Well, we finally have the data to show that it's not the personality of the parent, it's the amount of the time. And
well, Dr. Fabricius, that is fascinating. I could probably talk to you all day about this because I find it very fascinating. But we have come to the end of the time that we have with you today. I hope that you'll come back and we can talk about new research or continue the conversation. It has been a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to our audience, thank you for joining us today, and join us again next time on Families Divided.
The Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights 2022 Fall Conference was a success. The program featured presentations from world-renowned experts in the field of family law, mental health, and reconciliation. Now, plans are already underway for the 2023 conference. Stay informed of all the details by visiting familyaccess.info. Details will be coming soon. In the meantime, subscribe to the newsletter online, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and look for the latest information on Families Divided TV. Join us next week on Families Divided TV when Dr. Colleen Murray talks with 3 parents about the life of a parent with an adult alienated child.